Good afternoon. You're listening to the new WCEG Network on WCEGTalkRadio.com. Click your live stream pad or watch us live on your smart TV, YouTube, WCEG Network. I'm Celeste Giordano, your show host, along with Sherita Herring, my co-host of Global Legacy and Wealth Building for the next hour. We're the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. And last but not least, our disclaimer, the topics and opinions are those of the show host and guests and not WCEG Network. Thank you for your continued support, and also want to make sure that you can subscribe free to our YouTube channel at WCEG Network. And we also have some new platforms at the Apple Store. Go to WCEG Talk Radio. And if you have an Android, go to Google Play Store for WCEG Talk Radio. Good afternoon, ladies. How are you today?
Awesome sauce.
Yes, I'm telling you. And it's so great to see all these amazing ladies as we're approaching International Women's Month here. Sherita, as my co-host, it's always a pleasure to co-host with you, and that beautiful smile. You're the queen of grant writing. You know, I have to say that every time.
Yeah.
And we have some amazing ladies. We have some guests that you and I have met mutually while we were serving in Mexico together. We have some amazing friends up in Ohio. We have some friends in Florida, and very excited to host Carol Dockum, Eldonna Fernandez, and Bonnie Ross Parker today.
Mhm.
So before we get started, Sherita, a couple of things I'd like to do. Number one, I also would like to mention with February being Black History Month, would like to say that we honor all of those people with Black History Month. And anything you would like to say about that?
Well, it's just an honor first to be here and to be co-hosting with you. When I think of Black History Month, this month I have been actually speaking to individuals that are making current history. So often with Black History Month, we highlight all of those that have been our forerunners in our history. But so often our young people don't relate to them. And it's also important for them to see those that are still making traction ahead of them and currently with them. And so with my different organizations I have been working with, we've talked a lot about current history makers, and not just basketball players and football players, but some of them have even been highlighting their teachers, their neighbors that are doing amazing things, that are in the trenches doing the work. And so a lot of that has been going on. But happy Black History Month.
Absolutely.
And with today being the final day for February.
Absolutely. And before we start talking about International Women's Month and celebrations, I would love for you to tell our audience and listeners a little bit about you and what you do.
Well, as we approach Women's History Month, I had forgotten about back, I think it was in 2010, 2011, I was actually featured in a magazine and talking about Renaissance women. And I was honored to be featured in that magazine with Coretta Scott King and Maya Angelou. And then since that time, I've been featured in a magazine with Michelle Obama. And so I'm like, wow, it's an honor for my name to be even mentioned in articles with those women. I have been in the grants arena, as you mentioned me about grants, for over 30 years, from way back when I was a director at a YMCA. And since that time, I've helped organizations to raise over 30 million, and we've developed over 600 nonprofits alone through my organization. So it's an honor, again, to not only be a woman, but to have done some of the accomplishments that I've done in my life, and to work with individuals like yourself and the ladies that are here on the line. So again, Celeste, thank you for letting me co-host with you. And it gives me that opportunity to dabble back into broadcast after being on the air for so long in Los Angeles. So thank you.
Oh, it is my honor and privilege, most definitely. And I want to thank Penny Rogers with WCEG Talk Radio. They were just with the different ratings, but it became #1 in their ratings. So let's give them a round of applause. And it's such an honor and privilege to have this platform to bring together. The second Tuesday of each month is what I call our for-profit show, where we talk to people in the industries, whether it's lawyers, attorneys, real estate, money, anything around that. And then the fourth Tuesday of the month is always our nonprofit show, where Sarah Poe and I are the co-founders of Women of Community Impact. And this is our nonprofit show right here. And so we want to just say that it is an honor and privilege to be associated with each and every one of you, and just wonderful to have you with us today. So with that, what I'd like to do, Sherita, is let's let our guests introduce themselves, and then we're going to dive into some great topics here today about celebrating International Women's Month, okay? So what I'd like to do is start off with Miss Carol Dockum. Carol, would you tell our audience and listeners a little bit about you? And we're so glad to have you with us today, me and Sherita.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much, Celeste and Sherita and Penny here at WCEG Live Talk Radio. It's an honor to be here with these amazing women. So yes, I'm Carol Dockum. Let's see here, CEO and founder of Beautiful Faces Going Places Women's Success Network. And I am just passionate about creating ways, fun and creative ways to help market, promote and connect women, not just locally, but nationally and globally. Having lived over 15 years in Europe, I have a passion for culture, diversity, and just love meeting amazing women, which is why I came up with this concept of an online chamber of commerce to support women in business. Without the local politics and the good old boy network, and really just coming up with a fun name, right? Beautiful Faces Going Places. I'm like, who doesn't want to be a beautiful face going places? So looking forward to sharing my passion as well for International Women's Day with these incredible women that are here with us today. So thank you, Celeste.
Absolutely. And I met Carol back in 2018 at an eWomen event, and it was just like instant connection with Carol. She has a very servant heart lead. She's a servant heart leader, and she is up here in the Cincinnati, Westchester, Ohio area, and she does events. She does monthly networking events. You also do some events for one-day speaking engagements, and I've had the honor and privilege to be a guest speaker at several of those. And on your Zoom things during COVID, I was supposed to come up here and speak for the very first time, and then COVID hit and locked us down. I drove all the way up here, and it's like everything got shut down. So that was my first Zoom experience giving a speaking thing, was at Carol's Beautiful Faces Going Places. And Carol, what a phenomenal thing you've done up here in the Ohio area. And Women of Community Impact is very honored and privileged to work with you. Last year, during our Foster Children Month, during the month of May, we did 300 backpacks in Ohio, Kentucky, and Georgia. And Beautiful Faces Going Places supported Women of Community Impact, where we had these backpacks, and your organization brought all the goodies that went inside these backpacks. And then we went and delivered them to foster children organizations. So thank you so much, Carol. We appreciate that. All right, Miss Bonnie Ross Parker, tell us a little bit about you, please.
All right. If I start flashing, ladies, you'll know I'm going off of video anyway. Greetings from Florida. It's very warm here for those of you that are still having to deal with winter. My career, my entrepreneurial career is from 83 to current, which is, 50 years. It's hard to believe that it's actually 40 years. It's hard to believe it's even that long. But I started out as teaching, and in 83, I had health setback, and I decided to take a year off. And at the time, my husband said to me, I've heard of this franchise called Mailboxes, etc. I think maybe we might think about investing. So I took a leave of absence, not even expecting that I would not return to the teaching And so I experienced 12 years of franchise. I'd never owned a retail business. I had never done anything like that before, but I thought, I'll give it a try, and I loved it. I went from 0 locations to 28, of which I personally own 6. So I really moved along with that. But anyway, it was the foundation for what I do now, which is really empowering and supporting women in business, both the professional, the entrepreneurial women. And happened. Mailboxes, et cetera, at the time was not supportive of women. So when I moved from DC to Atlanta, I decided that I was going to find a way to support women. I didn't want women to go through some of the problems that I went through that I felt I could help them navigate. So that was 20 years ago, 2002. It's actually on our 21st year. We have probably had maybe 3,500 4,000 women go through our project over those years. I'm just really passionate about women who are doing amazing things, both locally and globally. I'm always fascinated by the backgrounds and what motivated women to do what they're doing, because I think that that's a huge factor in our success. So I was motivated, given that I had experienced a lot of discrimination as a woman in business. And I wanted to make sure that that would not happen to a woman that I have the opportunity to influence. So sorry you don't see me in and out live, but I'm here and I'm eager to just continue our dialogue together.
Good.
Very, very good. Thank you very much. Miss Eldonna.
Hi, I'm Eldonna Fernandez. I am a retired Air Force veteran. I spent 23 years in the Air Force as a contracts manager and negotiator. Wrote a book called Think Like a Negotiator and do some speaking and training on that. But I am primarily the founder of Baskets Beads Kenya, where we help women in Kenya in extreme poverty to build community and create micro enterprises so they can sell their products with dignity without having to struggle to survive. And we do this by providing a unique, personal, handcrafted fair trade product within a mass-produced world. And I'm really passionate about helping those women. Our slogan for Baskets and Beads is empowering women, educating children. We believe that if the women can be empowered and have that foundation for their children will be able to succeed, and helping them get educated and making sure that they're able to be in school. It's a real struggle over there in Kenya. They make beautiful handcrafted products from things that are sustainable out of paper beads out of magazines, and then beautiful handcrafted baskets, things out of papyrus reed grass that grows in Kenya, many beautiful aprons, pillows, all types of products. Started with 5 women, we're up to over 30, and then we have a couple other groups that we've expanded to, and we're actually even in a farm. Started a nonprofit here in the US, now have an NGO in Kenya that we've developed. And it's just growing and expanding, helping more women to be empowered and have that life from poverty to prosperity.
Very good. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for your service, Eldonna. We appreciate your service and time in the military.
Thank you.
Miss Sherita, why
Yes.
don't you start us off? We have a great show ahead of us today, and I'm going to ask you to start us off with some questions, please.
Well, as I was listening to the ladies, one of the things that amazed me is the 4,000 women that have gone through Bonnie's program. Bonnie, can you tell us the name? Is the program still operating?
Yes.
And can you tell the ladies listening how they can connect to that program?
Thank you, Sherita. If I start blinking, I'll go off, but I'll remain, of course, with you. The program is designed around the chapter. And we train women who want to have a significant role to play in impacting and supporting other women. So when I first started, I basically opened up my home in Atlanta, and I had that first time I had 40 to 45 women come for a meal and to share a little bit about their business, why they were there, what they were looking for. And over the course of time, it actually expanded to chapters. We're primarily in the Atlanta area. But what it does is it's not a membership, so they just participate when they can, and they select a location that's convenient with the time that they would like to go, and they get a meal and they get a roster and they get 3 minutes to share about their business. And it's just a great way for women in a relaxed environment to really open up and share what they need. And we're not about selling and telling, we're much more about engaging and support. And not only in business, but we've lost people who we have had individuals that have experienced loss, and they have a group that they can count on to support them. So it's much more than the business aspect. When I say 4,000, if you multiply the locations at 25 women a month over the 20 years, it really does add up. So we're very excited about the impact that we make, and it's Xperience. I put it in the chat. Xperience without the E, xperienceconnections.com. We have an online directory that's no fee, and we also list our locations and women can sign up. So I'm pretty excited about it. It's still alive and well and impacted a lot of women.
Wow. Okay. Well, great. Great.
Very good. You know, I have a question for Carol Dockum. So Carol, why is International Women's Day so important to you?
You know, having lived internationally, I want to give a shout out to Eldonna. Thank you for your service in the United States Air Force. I am a military brat myself, and growing up, my family was in the Air Force. So we traveled all over the place, including 3 years in Madrid, Spain. At the time, there was a Torrejon Air Force Base there. And my son is in the Air Force too. I have to give him a shout out. So thank you, Eldonna. But yeah, having lived internationally as an adult as well in corporate world, my husband at the time was working for Ford Motor Company, and that took us to London, Moscow, and Rome. And just a great opportunity, you know, just to really understand women from different cultures, different countries. And I think one of the things that really inspired me, or that I took home from that experience, is that there is kind of a golden thread that really intertwines all of us, and that we, at the core essence, you know, we all want the same things, right? We want love, respect, and appreciation, and to be valued. And so I think that's one of the things that I took home with. And I was introduced to International Women's Day while living in Moscow. I had no idea or no clue what this holiday was, and why, you know, what's the purpose and the essence. And then I realized it's really a special day to acknowledge amazing women around the globe who are, you know, making an impact. They are making waves, whether it's social or economic, and or political, you know, achievements for equality.
Yeah.
That's why I'm passionate about it. And I have just met some really cool, amazing women around the globe. So I'm passionate about International Women's Day. Coming back to the USA, when I repatriated, I was like, oh my gosh, we really don't celebrate that holiday here like they do in Europe, you know, and around the globe. And I tried to figure out, how can I make this something special here for us to embrace women of different cultures and backgrounds. And as Sherita, you were talking about women who are making an impact now versus historically. And then I met Angie Snowball Thompson of Living in America, who also is an expatriate who lived abroad. And I attended one of her International Women's Day events here in Dayton, Ohio. And then the following year, we said, let's put our brilliant minds together and create an event to celebrate International Women's Day. And so we've been kind of moving in that direction over the past several years. And still going strong and creating some really cool programs annually for International Women's Day.
Absolutely. You know, and Sherita, Carol and Angie did a 24-hour, and Ivy did a 24-hour International Women's Day last year. And I was one of the guest panel experts. I think we did in the nonprofit area for that. So, and you're doing it again this year, but it's just not going to be 24 hours. Is that correct, Carol?
That's right. Yes. Last year, we just came up with this idea, you know, how do we connect all of these amazing women around the globe that are living in different time zones, right? And we said, why don't we create an online 24-hour live stream celebration event. You know, I think we might have been out of our minds, but it was just amazing. We found amazing keynote speakers around the globe, different time zones, and then had them actually host during those time zones and those time frames, if you will, and all kinds of really cool topics, you know, from, you know, mompreneur to work-life balance, you know, all kinds of topics that relate to women, not just here in the USA, but globally.
Absolutely. There was people from Africa. There was people from Finland and London. They were all over.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah.
I think we even had somebody from Poland.
We did, yes. We even had some live on location. So we had some individuals in Asia. We had London, Italy, a cooking class in Italy with Wendy Holloway, and just a really cool 24-hour live stream. And it was so much fun. So thank you for asking about that.
Absolutely.
Well, I tell you, I'm chomping at the bit here. Eldonna and I go all the way back to at least 2008, and I only knew her as military. So now, Eldonna, to see you working with the ladies in Kenya, when did you get started with the baskets and beads, and what got you interested in that?
Well, and I can relate with Carol with the traveling around. And I have actually been to bases in Spain after they were closed when I was stationed in the UK. So we got a lot in common there. But I went to Kenya on a mission trip in February 2018 and met the ladies they lived in a place, or they still live in a place called the Kipsongo slum, which is very small mud huts, no kitchens, bathrooms, running water. When we met them, they were singing joyously to greet us, and they were so friendly and so happy. And when we got ready to leave, but let me back up a little bit. I went there for 10 days. We had visited a lot of different places, taking supplies, doing encouragement, visiting schools and clinics and kids on the street. And one of the places we went was actually a prison, which was right before International Women's Day. So I got to speak to a group of women in a prison in Kenya, in Kitale, Kenya. And I thought, what could I actually share with these women to inspire them? But I just shared with them and we couldn't get very close. We had to stay over here because they were prisoners. An interesting thing about Kenya, in the prisons, they can keep their children there till they're 4 years old. And then they have to go with a relative, which is very, very interesting thing to do. But they were celebrating International Women's Day there, and we were there in February. So they asked us to give a message ahead of that. But when we went to Kipsongo and met these ladies, we're getting ready to leave. One of the ladies, Patricia, gifted me with this paper bead necklace made out of magazines that I'm wearing, and wanted sponsorship for her son to go to school. And none of us had, and a few of them had some products, and none of us had any money with us. And I found out somebody on a previous trip had given them a microloan to get started, about 5 women, a microloan to get started making products so they could sell them there in Kitale, Kenya, which is about 8 hours from Nairobi and close to Uganda. And I thought, oh, wow, that's great. I went to sleep that night thinking about Patricia, her son Maxwell, who she wanted to sponsor to go to school. The school fees there are really pricey. And I was tossing and turning and woke up with this God-inspired idea to buy some beads and sell them with my book when I was speaking. And baskets and beads, that name was dropped in my heart. And I brought back half a suitcase of beads from 5 women. And I was scheduled to speak. I came back like the 28th of February, I was scheduled to speak at an International Women's Day event. And I shared the story. I had just been to Kenya. I bought these beads and I sold out. And I doubled the order and I sold out again, and I tripled the order and I sold out again. And it was starting to catch. And I thought, wow, this could be something. I could really do something to make these women's lives better. And it's expanded from 5 women that we started with up to 30. And all through COVID, we raised funds to make sure that they had food, because there was no sales. Obviously, everything shut down. But We do wholesale, retail. I've just moved into a showroom space that's also going to be retail and wholesale type of thing, and place for shipping products and doing lives, and we're doing live shopping and things. We took our group of ladies, my last trip, I'm getting ready to go again the end of May. Our last trip last summer when I went, we took our group of ladies up to a place called Mount Elgon, which is close to Uganda in the national park up there. And those women got inspired to create community. We're teaching these women how to build community. One thing that here in the US and also in Europe, women are used to gathering together. Well, they weren't used to that. They didn't even trust each other. The first group of women, it was hard for them to even be in a room together because they thought, oh, she's out to get me. She's out to get me. And I don't know her and I can't trust her. Now they're such a tight knit group. I'll tell that story in a minute. So we went up to Mount Elgon, and now this group formed a group, and we're starting to help them create a farm. They do farming.
Wow.
But our group of ladies, so they're from the Turkana tribe, and in the Turkana tribe, women they have no leadership roles whatsoever. But our group is so organized in such a community that every time the tribal elders made a change, our ladies would speak up and say, oh, no, wait a minute. And so finally the tribal elders said, okay, you need to have a representative on the tribal council, because we every time we put forth something, you all come together and make a change. So our manager, Dorcas, is now sitting on the tribal council, which is a huge accomplishment for a woman within that tribe. So she actually sits on the tribal council and makes decisions for the community with the rest of the tribe.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Well, there's a group in Uganda I'd like to connect you to, because I brought a lot of their purses and jewelry back from when I was in Uganda. And so the Precious Kids Foundation, I'd like to introduce you to them. That's one of the groups that, Celeste, I talked to you about that I thought would be a great guest for the show. And so Eldonna, they will be a great connection for you, and their purses. I was selling their things in my shop here through my nursery. And I gifted one to my daughter-in-law when they were just here. That was almost 2 years ago. And she's still using that purse and is holding up. And so the quality control of the products is amazing. So that just thrilled me that you're doing this work after the military. And I was like, where's the connection? So.
Well, you should come to Kenya with me, all of you. Come on, let's go.
Absolutely. But that is awesome. So Bonnie, I have a question. As you look back, how do you view the impact of the internet as it relates to women today?
Excuse me. Well, it's really interesting because I never had, I didn't know anything about Zoom or internet. Now, of course, our meetings are both on and offline, up close and personal. I'd rather get rid of this. I'm sorry to do that to you guys. Anyway, I just think, look at how we're together right now, and we're sharing experiences that are international. And by the way, Eldonna, I want to acknowledge you. My husband's a Navy guy, and I meant to mention that when I was speaking earlier. But I just think it's wonderful that we can connect with anyone at any time all over the world, because technology has brought this opportunity to us, and particularly women, because there's that whole thing, women are, they're competitive and they're out for each other. And it's so not true anymore. I think we are finding more and more in common. And I know I love to meet somebody and then introduce them to somebody I know, and then I meet somebody and then I will make sure that they meet the person that I know. And I just think that this whole international arena opens up so many more doors of friendship, of sisterhood, of understanding, of respect. When I think about what you were just saying about, Eldonna, about the fact that, food is an issue, or that there was competition until they came to understand and appreciate one another. And I'm totally fascinated. Boy, I've never been to Kenya, so don't tempt me. But I really am in awe of what women have accomplished and how they are setting such a high standard because of their integrity, because of their intelligence, because of their experiences. And that's something that nobody can ever take away from us, ever. Mm-hmm. It's something that's in our DNA. And I love what you were saying, Shrita, about not only acknowledging women of the past through this particularly special, but also the women that are pioneering today. It's just, I don't know. I don't think any of us can really appreciate enough the growth and the accomplishments that women have achieved. And I'm just part of it, just a part of a big heart. So.
Now, Celeste, were you getting ready to ask a question?
Well, what I was gonna piggyback off of that question for Bonnie, because she is, it was the founder of the Xperience Connection. And as Carol is the founder of Beautiful Faces Going Places, when COVID came into play, both of these organizations were in-person networking, and then COVID shut everything down. And then Eldonna, as a speaker and a negotiator, I'm sure your speaking engagements got shut down as well. And then how we all came about with Zoom, and how Zoom brought a lot of people together, and we had to do this for a year and a half. I mean, and it was, I was getting emails. I don't know about you ladies, but my emails were blowing up. Zoom to this day, Zoom 2 hours from now, Zoom 7 o'clock tonight. I mean, it was 24/7 going on, but met a lot of amazing ladies, through the internet during COVID. Again, as I said, it was the first time I ever did a Zoom speaking engagement, and it's like second nature now. And the Penny with WCEG Talk Radio, it was an in-person radio station. And when COVID came around, Penny and I collaborated and had a conversation. Penny reached out to me and she said, Celeste, she had been wanting me to do a show with this global legacy and wealth building. And Atlanta, to go into Atlanta was like an hour and a half each, to go down there. She said, we're doing this via Zoom. And now we're going into our third season with WCEG. What a blessing.
Yes,
that was to us. And look at the people that we have on this platform, not just our show, Sherita, but all the other guest experts that Penny has on WCEG Talk Radio.
Well, I was getting ready to ask Carol about her online chamber, but I was also going to play off of what she was saying. COVID, no matter how, yes, it impacted all of us. We lost thousands upon thousands of lives, but it also goes to show you that even in the worst storms, how there's a rainbow and how so many wonderful things come out of that. And again, COVID showed people, from attending from birthday parties to even funerals. My aunt's husband, my uncle, when he passed, we did his funeral via Zoom so that those that could not travel were a part of the services. And I was sitting there and it felt like I was there. I'm crying and I'm seeing all of the singing, and we even have women's Friday night gatherings via Zoom. So out of COVID, it opened the doors for us to be right where we are today. And so I was going to say, Carol, with your online Chamber of Commerce, did you have a Chamber of Commerce before Zoom? Had you started it prior to COVID?
Right.
Your Beautiful Faces and Going Places. When did it start, and was it the offshoot of COVID?
You know what? It actually started with an idea. You know how everything starts with an idea, right? A thought, an idea, an inspiration. At the time, it was about 7 or 8 years ago, I was actually a Chamber of Commerce executive director. So I was running a Chamber of Commerce. I absolutely loved everything about it, but I was missing the world of international travel and missing just incredible international women that I had in my everyday life. And I had this idea of, wow, wouldn't it be so cool to connect women around the globe, bring education, information, resources, utilizing and leveraging technology. And I had this inspiration, Beautiful Faces Going Places, Women's Success Network, as an online Chamber of Commerce. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. I think I researched about 2 years, how do I make this happen? This vision is bigger than me. And of course, Zoom we had access to Zoom, and, I said, okay, you know what you have to do. You're a former chamber executive director. You know how to run a chamber. Just use the same principles, but create an online version and launch your company and stop thinking about it. Stop researching and just do it. So I launched my company. It'll be 5 years this coming September.
Outstanding.
And then our very first online meeting happened in February. Was it 2019, Celeste? And
It was March 2019.
March
Before
2019. You were the featured guest speaker for a monthly lunch and learn networking event, and we were shut down. Celeste called me and said, "Oh my goodness, Carol, what are we going to do?" And I said, "Don't worry. We've got you. We're going to jump on Zoom. This is our opportunity. The show must go on." And, Celeste is like, "Well, I don't know how to use Zoom." And I said, "Well, I don't know either." But we're two very smart, intelligent women. We can do this. And the next thing you know, all of our attendees that had registered for in-person, joined the Zoom link, and we managed through it. So Celeste, thank you so much for holding my hand and launching this incredible opportunity to connect women around the globe, leveraging technology. So Sherita, I'm with you. I feel like that is the blessing, the underlying silver lining of what we all experienced the last, 2.5 years. So this is a gift, a true gift.
There's a lot of businesses that would have totally shut down. And by being able to go virtual, it saved so many small businesses. And so small and large businesses, because many, even though employees could not go to work, this is how they kept their large businesses going.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I want to give a hats off to Carol. She said, her business 2018. And I believe it was 2018. It was either 18 or 19 when she had her first international summit or second international summit. I'm not sure which one it was, Carol, but she had over 75 women in the room with that international summit up there. I'll never forget that. It was a phenomenal event, Carol, and you do a phenomenal job with that. And I know, Bonnie, that Xperience Connection does a one-day summit as well each year. So congratulations to both of you ladies for the things that you do to bring women together monthly, whether it be in-person meetings or Zoom meetings, as well as to have educational lunch and learns. And you also have, summits, one-day summits, where you have phenomenal guest speakers. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Bonnie, with you starting your career back in 83, could you have imagined the role of women in the workforce here 40 years later?
Oh, no, never. When I started, with mailboxes, et cetera, honestly, Sherita, I didn't know how to thread a cash register. Putting the tape in or whatever. I'm going to have to go off it, but I'm with you. So there was so much I had to learn, And the training, it was both for men and for women, and negotiating, it was an example of the strength of women now. I mean, back then, the landlord wouldn't even let me sign a lease to co-sign with my husband. And I was furious about that. And he said, "Well, I'll just sign it and be done with it, But boy, I proved them wrong. And I think that the fact that it was a woman doing the training, I had, as I mentioned, I put together 28 franchises, and I was responsible for all the training and so on. I think that aside from the corporate office, as I mentioned, that was not supportive, I really think that my respect for my appreciation for women who were owning a franchise, had a family, went through training, had employees. I had never, ever experienced that as a teacher. And it really created a lot of respect and a lot of heart for what women go through. And to sort of dovetail on the Zoom thing, I mean, there were so many people who were able to stay connected because of Zoom. Carol mentioned it, and a lot of my colleagues both. I mean, they did the Zoom for the time that they needed to, and now some of them are doing two gatherings a month. So now they're meeting people from all over the country, That never would have happened. Even if, you don't, I mean, there's a lot of businesses that don't need to be geographically nearby in order for us to engage. So I just think that there's a lot that we're benefiting. I have to tell you, Celeste, when I first started with Zoom, of course, I'm being challenged today because of wonderful Spectrum. When I first got started, I just like, oh my God, there's no way I could do this. And now there's no way I would be without it. So we do learn, right? It just takes some time and some perseverance and some loving people like the rest of you that are encouraging, so I'm happy. I wouldn't be here with you today if it wasn't for this platform.
Absolutely. I mean, the platforms have brought us together. And I think in order to make an impact today, that we do have to have more than one way to reach out to people, whether it be we need in-person meetings, we need Zoom, we need, one-day summits, we need lunch and learns, we need several different funnels to make it work today. And Bonnie and I were just talking about this today. I'm not going to mention my franchise, but I started working in 1978 in direct sales, and I can count the number of women on my one hand in direct sales in 1978. And when I became a franchise owner in the early 80s, this company had about 850 international and North American franchises. And out of those 850, there were less than 15 women franchise owners. So we've come a long ways. We really have.
Yes, we have. I was doing GoToMeeting back in 2012, 2013, something like that. And at first, people did not want to enroll in my classes because they felt like, Sherita, will it be as effective? Will I learn things? I mean, I'm used to sitting in a classroom. And so it took a while. And now at that time, initially, we couldn't see each other. It was only the audio. And so when we were able to start seeing each other, we really thought we were, it was the first initial of the Jetsons, right? But and it's something now, Carol, I don't know if you have a book out, but talking about women and accomplishments, the fact that Eldonna and even Bonnie, you've got a couple of books. It wasn't often during that time when we talk about the accomplishments of women, most authors were men. And so even the fact that myself, I'm a published author, the fact that women's voices are heard in so many different ways now is truly amazing. And I'm sure that Carol, if you don't have a book, you've got one in the making because you have a voice that I'm sure you're going to put in print if you haven't done so already.
Most authors were men and most speakers were men.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and you talk about the women. Okay, I came in the military in 1980, and the military was 8% women when I joined.
Wow.
And it's a lot more now. But statistic I heard a couple of years ago was 22%. It's probably a little bit more than that. Still male-dominated environment, but I had my own struggles, kind of like, oh, you're a woman, you don't know anything, and kind of go away. I had some of that kind of thing happen, and it was an interesting dynamic, different than it is today. And there were many women before me that paved the way for me to join. I think right at the time I joined, they had just changed the rule to allow women who were pregnant in the military to stay in.
Wow.
Right before that, they were forced to get out in the 70s. So you could not stay in the military if you had become pregnant. And they changed that rule. That the rule was so new that women had to order maternity uniforms, and there was not that many to be made. And I remember one coworker came in and she was pregnant and she had to wear civilian clothes until her uniforms got there, which was unheard of.
Celeste, that's a show in itself for your future, women in the military, and for women to talk about not only the history, but the hurdles they had to overcome. I'm sure, Eldonna, that you guys have some stories. Sadly,
I actually have a book called Heart of a Military Woman that is stories from World War II to present day. And I co-authored that with a
what
fellow.
a great name.
Yeah, and it's stories by, for, and about military women and all of our experiences that we had in the military.
Wow. Wow.
We can't thank you enough for your service and where you have been and where you have gone in the military and where you are today, Eldonna. My husband, retired from the military, the Air Force as well, and he was just telling a story one day this week. I forget who it was to, that back in the days we were talking about women and men, and so he was a chief master sergeant, but anyways, he had to pick somebody to do something. I don't have the story right, but he ended up choosing a woman for this position back in the 80s, and she was the most qualified person for it. And my hat's off to him for that, because it was not an easy road for women in the military, that's for sure.
Mm. Well, speaking of military, I think about boots, and these boots are made for walking. Bonnie, I see you wrote a book called Walk in My Boots. And
it's funny you should say that, because I'm living in Florida and I still wear boots all the time. And during throughout COVID, wearing masks and all that, there would be people that would say, "Hi, Bonnie," and I didn't even know. I didn't even know who they were, but they saw my cowboy boots, even though I had my mask and my eyeglasses and so on. I've been wearing cowboy boots since Phil and I started dating, so it's over 30 years, and I never intended to write a book. A lot of people probably say I never intended to write a book, but it just became a signature for me. And then somebody said, you should really write. And then somebody else suggested Walk in My Boots, The Joy of Connecting, which is what the organization was called at the time. So if you saw me right now, I'm wearing cowboy boots, and Walk in My Boots was just a takeoff on just, let's journey together,
Yeah.
But I have to mention one thing, because we're talking about maternity. My first year of teaching, the very first year, the principal of the school, I graduated GW University, called me into the office. School starts in school year is September. This was like January, February. I have a question to ask you. And I said, "Are you pregnant?" And I said, "Why?" She said, "Just answer the question. Are you pregnant?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "You have to leave. We don't allow pregnant teachers in the classroom." So you can imagine, I ended up teaching 12 years, but when you think about where we are now relative to where we were, we talk about pioneering women, but there were women that did fight. That's like a whole nother conversation of women's rights. But can you imagine being told that you can't teach because you're pregnant? So we've all had some great experiences. Very quickly, I want to say, if you decide to do a military segment, I have two very strong recommendations from my community that would be phenomenal guests. So phenomenal. And I can share that with Celeste or Sherita if the time comes that you want to do that. They're amazing. Really.
Good,
We have a couple of dates available, and Sherita, you and I'll get together on that. I think it's a great thing. I think we have collaborated today with celebrating International Women's Month and Day, and now we've got another story to tell. But I'd like to ask Eldonna if she has a story that she would like to share with us about maybe from one of the families over there that you would like to share with us.
Oh gosh, I have so many different stories about some of the families over there. So my director, Layla, is the boots on the ground in Kenya. I'll tell you how I met her. Her and her family, they're like my family. I'm part of their family. They're part of my family. I met Layla. Layla was used to do the coordination for Pastor Steve Rutenbar, who went to Kenya for about 20 years. And he passed away about a little over a year ago in November 2021. But she would be his coordinator, and she would coordinate all the things, because he would take teams of people over there. So that's kind of what I'm doing now, taking people to Kenya. And so she would coordinate and everything. And when I went to meet the ladies in Kipsango slum, and I woke up the next morning with that idea, I went to tell that to Steve, and he was like, "Oh, wow, that's a great idea. It's something small, it's something that you could build on. You're helping a few people," because a lot of people get overwhelmed with emotion. They want to do something grandiose that isn't going to work in that environment. You have to really start small. And she had the same vision, that she wanted to help empower those women. And we've teamed up together, and her husband in the beginning was like, yeah, good luck with that. And he's come on board and said, oh, this is great. So he's on the board of the nonprofit over there, and we work together to coordinate things. Me on this end, her on that end. She coordinates all the orders. She works with, we have 7 kids through our Educating Children program that we're sponsoring for school fees and uniforms. And so she works and coordinates. 2 of them were on the street. We took them off the street. They weren't so far gone off the street where they needed to really be detoxed and things. There's a certain level of kids that you can't just take off the street and put in school. And one of our kids, actually, his name's Aloys, is very interested in engineering. He's in his 2nd year of high school. So I'm really dedicated to, she works with them and makes sure that all their needs are met and does all the coordination. And so my family has grown not only to her, but all the ladies within Kenya. One of our ladies has 10 kids. Her name's Dina, and she's got 10 kids. Some of them have grown and gone through school. I think I met one of them when they were in nursing school, and she has a little boy who must be about 3 now. So I'm connected to all of these ladies. I know their stories. I know the things they like and the things that they're talented at. We have some ladies that in our tailoring group that sew, and they're the ones that make the things like the aprons and the pillows and the dog bandanas, which they thought was absolutely hysterical. They're like, you want to make what? I'm like, dog bandanas, trust me. Like, what? You want to put a bandana on a dog? And I showed them pictures, and they could not stop laughing. They just thought it was the most hysterical thing. Like, what? What's wrong with you people in America? You know, we put bandanas on our dogs, and some people do it on the cats. So so that's Layla, and I could tell you stories about so many others. Dorcas, our manager, she is a leader. She has strong leadership characteristics, and she gets those ladies in line. And so anybody steps out of line, because sometimes women with each other, and she won't put up with any of that. She'll kind of, okay, stop it right now. But I just really have a real fondness for Layla and her dedication to support these women as well.
Well, now speaking of women and just women influencing us, Carol, who is a woman of influence that have influenced you in your life?
You know, for me, it always boils down to family, you know, our mothers, our grandmothers. And let me just say, I was so lucky and fortunate to have my husband's grandmother influenced me, and also my husband's mother. So yes, growing up, I was not one to, you know, learn some of the basic skills, home life skills, if you will. So having, you know, a grandmother teach me how to do some canning and how to set a table. And, you know, as a young child or young teenager growing up, I had no interest, you know, but I really do appreciate that. And my mother-in-law was and still is amazing. And as an entrepreneur, she owns several clothing stores. I was a young teenager, you know, watching her run several clothing stores, an interior design center, and actually had the opportunity to go on buying trips with her. And I think she inspired me, and in terms of becoming an entrepreneur and a woman in business, and knowing that I had the potential to step up to the plate and be a successful businesswoman someday. So those were the 2 women that inspired me from a youth, moving on to, you know, high school, college, graduation. And so I think it's just so important to have those inspirational women in our lives, you know, from a very early age on, even into adulthood. And right now, the amazing women that I get to work with, you know, just at Beautiful Faces Going Places. So, and right now today on this platform. So thank you.
And that says a lot, especially being a daughter-in-law, talking about your mother-in-law, because I know if you guys see these plants are called mother-in-law's tongue, because they will survive in shade. You can't kill them, that you don't have to water them. They're just always around. And they got that name on from the negative side. And so just like my daughter-in-laws, I love them to death. And So to hear you say that, and I was just looking at my plan as you were talking about that, there's always this other impression that people have about mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws. And to hear you say the influence that his grandmother and mother had in your life is just truly amazing. And it's so wonderful that you were exposed to those two women.
It
Absolutely.
is. Thank you.
I mean, that's a blessing. We have about 5 minutes left. And what I want to do is that the theme of this year's International Women's Day is inclusiveness. And we've heard a lot about DEI. I would like for you just to give a 1 sentence or 2 sentence thing. And I'll start with you, Eldonna, on, the theme of inclusiveness. What does that mean to you?
Inclusiveness means including everybody. There's a scripture that says, love your neighbor as yourself. That means even people that you disagree with. So we need to include everybody and give everybody the opportunity to share their voice, to speak, to have an opportunity. Everybody needs the opportunity. It's lift as you climb, as they say in eWomen, not step on as you climb. And it's very important that everybody's given an opportunity. And if you have that opportunity, someone, you can help someone, you can reach out to them and help them get to a place that maybe they wouldn't be able to because their network isn't big enough or their experience isn't big enough. It's reaching out to that person that maybe you don't know and include them and bring them into the fold and help them along too, just as well as any other woman and anybody else for that matter, men, women, anybody.
Very well said, Eldonna. Thank you. Bonnie, what does it mean to you?
Well, I just believe so much in diversity and inclusion, and I'm all about supporting anyone and everyone. And I've always lived with the motto that you just never know who you're going to meet or who's going to meet you and the difference you can make in somebody's life. So for me, it's a way of living. For me, it's a way of conducting yourself. We all have gifts and we all don't have the same gifts. And the degree that we can leave behind, the difference that we can make through the gifts that we offer, I think it's behooving on us to listen, to embrace, to support, and to create an environment where everyone can reach their full potential. And very proud to be a woman, as a woman and a woman in business and a sisterhood such as we've shared tonight. So thank you.
Very much so, Bonnie. Thank you so much. Carol.
Yes, for me, inclusiveness, really just what resonates with me is leaving no one behind, leaving no one out, and offering to embrace all of our differences and to offer a seat at our table wherever we're at, and really just, leaving no one behind and making sure that everyone feels welcomed and accepted. And no matter your background, your, education, your background, your socioeconomics, we're all so different, not just locally, nationally, but globally. But really, it's leaving no one behind and including everyone all in.
Okay. Sherita.
Well, working in the nonprofit arena, the moment that I hear the word inclusiveness, I think of the term that's used in the nonprofit arena, which is collaboration. And collaboration means to not only you're working with partners, but it's learning how to work together, understanding that all of you are not giving up who you are, but you're stronger together. And so I think of collaboration. What about you, Celeste?
I have 2 favorite quotes, and they are, people don't care how much you know, do they know how much you care, and people over profits. And I'm like you, I think that we have to include everybody in what we do, and we have to, the word respect. We can agree to disagree, and we all do not come from the same backgrounds, the same geographical locations, economic locations, and that we have to include people, and we have to have an understanding that we may not agree on something, but the fact of the matter is that 2 hands make more noise than one, and everybody has a gift and has something to bring to the table, and look for the good in that person.
Yes. Agreed.
So we are at the top of the hour, Sherita. What a fabulous show.
Yeah, I was
I-
just ready to say that. Celeste, thank you for involving me because
Ab-
this has been a great show.
And we had wonderful guests, Eldonna from California, Carol from Ohio, and Bonnie from Florida. Would you give us a closing comment, Sherita, please?
Well, again, I just want to thank you ladies for being on and sharing your lives, showing all of the different ways that women have been empowered, not only right now in what you're doing in your businesses, but sharing the history and the things that you've gone through to get where you are. I think that's empowering in itself for those that will hear the show, that are hearing it now, or those that will listen to the recording, because so often women are stuck. Well, people get stuck, but women especially because of the hurdles that have been experienced. And I think that this show will be very empowering for them. And I also want to note that the Women's International Day is the 8th of this month. So
Absolutely.
we're celebrating the month, but that is the actual day. And again, Celeste, thank you for allowing me to co-host with you. It's always an honor to work with you.
Yes, it is. It's an honor to be with each of you. And on behalf of the Women of Community Impact, you know, we are bridging the gap in servant leadership. And Eldonna, thank you for everything you're doing in Africa and Kenya and all the surrounding cities and bringing it back here to the United States. And would love to collaborate and have a conversation with you on how maybe the Women of Community Impact can maybe put together something where maybe we want to take a team of people over there, if not this year, next year. You know, I also want to say to Carol that with Xperience Connection, you know, they did a book several years ago with a bunch of their members, and they put some things together and put together a book, and everybody wrote a chapter or two. That would be a great idea for Beautiful Faces Going Places. And Sherita, I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done for Women of Community Impact with your knowledge of your philanthropy and your grant writing and teaching to our community. And most importantly, I want to thank Penny Rogers and the board at WCEG Talk Radio. Congratulations again on being #1 and the platform that you give to the community. Such an honor and privilege to bring this show to you today. And ladies, I want to say, I want to honor you and celebrate International Women's Day month, all month long. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Love you guys.
Thank you.